Welcome in, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between to the another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate you all so much for joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or if it's one of your favorite places to check out podcasts later on in the week. It is a fun, very eventful first week and some change of June, and it is DJ joined as always by my co-host Kelcey. And Kelcey, we got an interesting show today. Is we'll be leaning into the football sphere, but not the summer of football, which we'll be talking about in future episodes, but a Americano football episode today, which is surprising for this point in June for us.
Yeah, normally, obviously, we could be talking about NBA Finals, but let's be honest. There's been some crazy things happening in the gridiron, and I would like to talk about that a little more than I would like to talk about what I'm watching in the NBA Finals, despite really what is a really good NBA Finals series and a really good Stanley Cup Finals series, by the way. If nobody's watching that, I highly suggest going and watching that, even if you're not a hockey fan. It's still pretty entertaining. 2 games, overtime, 3rd game, blowout, 4th game. I don't know what to expect anymore. So, it's been a lot of fun so far. And obviously with everything happening on the gridiron, it takes precedence like normal.
Absolutely. And with the NBA Finals, Game 3 is about to be taking place pretty much at the time of this recording that we are live. So that's another reason we will definitely be touching on that moving forward. A very captivating series, despite what the loud people on Twitter might have you think about it, as you said, with the Stanley Cup Finals. So we'll have plenty more to get into that moving to the future. But for now, we're going to go ahead and start the show off with our opening segment known as the Tip-Off, brought to our good friends over at SeatGeek. Use code BELLYWITHSPORTS to get yourself $20 off your first purchase. Concerts, sporting events, anything that requires tickets. Use code BELLYWITHSPORTS, get $20 off your initial purchase. And we're going to actually on the gridiron this time too, is it is officially official after months and weeks and days and hours of speculating. Aaron Rodgers is finally gone to Pittsburgh. He is in the Steel City, actually a mini camp too, not skipping it out right now, not off onto some tomfoolery. So Kelcey, one of your top 300 favorite quarterbacks of the last 4 years is in Pittsburgh. What do we think about this?
I don't know if he even qualifies as the top 300 over the last 4 years. But I am glad that he finally signed. But I just, for no other reason, to shut up the talking heads. We knew it was going to happen. Like, this was like written in stone 17 weeks ago. But you know what? The thing that I love the most about this is as soon as he's already in the Steel City, there is already drama with Aaron Rodgers. This time, by the way, his helmet, which he's used his previous helmet for 20 plus years. He was grandfathered through. Now he has to switch over to the F7 shoot helmet, and he's literally hates it. Even though it has the exact same face mask, it's the exact same manufacturer. The only difference is the fact that it's a little bit bigger than his previous helmet. Like, oh no, your big head has to fit in a bigger helmet. How sad for you, A-Rod. But in all reality, like I think he's going to work well for the Steel City as long as Tomlin can keep him in check. But if there's ever any one thing that could get Mike Tomlin fired, it might be Aaron Rodgers, which if you're a Pittsburgh fan, and maybe you don't love that, maybe you do love that, I don't know, but it's going to be a very interesting road to watch.
I'm getting some PTSD of AB with helmet issues, and now we got AR with helmet issues. Like, this is, I don't like this correlation we're seeing here, but hopefully it doesn't quite escalate to those levels. Hopefully Aaron doesn't get, frostbite on his feet or anything anytime soon. But
I mean, him and DK, that's if there's a frostbite or a frigid situation waiting to happen, I think that's your moment right there.
I will say too, as you mentioned, I do think he is the best, even at his advanced age, he's the best quarterback they've had in probably like 5 years.
Oh yeah.
The problem is, I don't know if that really makes a huge difference here. I don't think it changes the record or changes how things go regardless. I still think they're looking at 10-7 wild card round. Probably not end up facing as a 6 or 7 seed. Probably not beating a Chiefs or a Bills or a Ravens or one of those top tier teams up there. So I don't know how much it will change the overall result. What I will say, as you mentioned, DK Metcalf, he just climbed up in fantasy rankings to a potential 3rd round pick. I know some places have him as like receiver 20. Aaron Rodgers is going to get him the ball. There's one thing that Aaron Rodgers is not scared to do. It's to throw the 50-50 balls to his number 1 guy. And now the Pickens is gone. It is a big gap. And then whoever 2, 3, and 4 are. So DK in fantasy, round 3 or 4, I think is very, very legitimate spot because I think he's going to get opportunities, especially in the red zone, where DK has weirdly enough not been as big of a factor the last few years. Is getting in the end zone so much, which I think changes this year. So I think 9-8, 10-7, they're the exact same spot, but it will look a lot prettier than it has the last few years. It'll look like the first 2 games of Russell Wilson's tenure before it went off the rails. Just we're going to expand that throughout the whole season. They do got to figure out TJ Watt though, first and foremost. You can't have him not being there.
No, that's like number 1, especially in that division. You need a defensive end. because there's a couple quarterbacks in that division that could be problematic, and none of them play for Cleveland. So, but there's two more teams that you got to worry about. And I'm looking at their. I was curious, so I had to look up the wide receiver depth chart for the Steelers. You're right. It's DK Metcalf, then Bobby Trees is number 2. Calvin Austin is currently the number 3. Behind them, Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller, and Ben Skoranek. So, yeah.
A couple of leftover Rams guys, and if Roman Wilson is healthy, we'll see. I think he's talented, but once again, we got to see him play.
Yeah. There is also Rock Taylor down there on the bench, which I think could be a difference maker, like a Randall Cobb-esque player for Aaron Rodgers. But, yeah, look, it's going to be DK's show. And if DK complains about anything, it better be because his hands can't catch the ball a la T.O. because his ligaments are busted. Like, you're not going to have any chance to complain about anything if you're DK. You're going to be force-fed at times. And Pat Freiermuth, we might finally get to see a real Pat Freiermuth sighting, which I've been waiting for since he got drafted.
Well, we'll see. Aaron Rodgers has to, throw it to the tight end, which he's done for like 1.5 years of his career. But you know what? If he does decide to throw to Freiermuth because there's no other choice, like you said, maybe a fantasy sleeper pick as well. DK is going to complain about anything. It's going to be the candy selection in Pittsburgh because you know how much he likes to go through that for worse.
Lots of saltwater taffy over there. I hear they're pretty salty.
You know what? That matches some personalities as well too, so that'd be perfect. But I still like the move. I think it makes sense. If Will Howard is going to develop long term, I think that's a good guy to have in front of him too. And Aaron's even said he's going to do everything he can to help Will Howard. So, you know what? I like the move. I just don't know if it gets them over that hump of getting the first playoff win in almost a decade now. So we'll see though for sure. But I do love DK Metcalf in fantasy, and maybe even Aaron Rodgers in fantasy for like a QB3 or a QB1 gets hurt and you need to pick somebody else off. Let us know down in the comments what you all think below. You did mention this might give them the third best quarterback in the AFC North because we don't know what's going on in Cleveland. Well, speaking of Cleveland, a former Clevelander has recently signed as Nick Chubb is heading down to Houston, where he will sign a 1 year, I believe it's a $2.9 million deal to be the running back for Houston, pairing up with former AFC North running back Joe Mixon. I like the move. I think if he can stay healthy, the concern is he's had his knees absolutely obliterated twice once in his college and once in his professional career. And when I mean obliterated, like, my God, it's not supposed to go that way bad. If he can come back relatively healthy, I think he leads Houston in rushing next year. I think he takes, at some point during the season, he takes the bulk of the carries and runs away and helps run away with it. But that's the big question, is how healthy he could be. But great signing by Houston, and a good spot for Nick Chubb is if that offensive line can sharpen up and fortify a little bit. We saw last year the amount of time CJ Stroud got assaulted. So I do think if they could just fortify a little bit to give Chubb some room, I think he could be a very good addition for him.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting mix between what you see with Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon. I think that's going to be very interesting. But I think for CJ Stroud, this is a best possible situation because now you have two running backs who you have to trust. And now you have Dameon Pierce, who you had one really good year of. Obviously, CJ didn't have one really good year with him, but he had one really good year in Houston. And then he got replaced by Joe Mixon. And now it's like a situation where, okay, where's he fit in? He's probably going to be on the move somewhere. But this gives you that option now where you can run 3, 4, 5, 6 times straight if you keep getting first downs. And you don't have to worry about which running back's going to be taking the handoffs. You have the opportunity to have plenty of depth in the backfield. And you also don't have to ride either one of these guys. Who Joe Mixon's had injury problems, Nick Chubb coming off the third knee surgery. Now it's a situation where you can actually use them at maybe half strength, if you will, for a lot longer. So they're only going to be playing the equivalent of 8.5 total games each versus 17 total games like they would if they were a true number one. Now you got a 1A, 1B, which I think for Houston is a huge boost. But I do have to throw this out here. How many Cleveland Browns players are we going to see now suiting up for the Texans? Isn't it like 7, 8, maybe even 9?
I don't know the exact number. What I do know is the Browns GM Andrew Berry, the city of Houston owes him a nice fruit basket. He is pretty much responsible for their entire resurgence in the last handful of years due to that trade, the Nick Chubb signing, and a variety of other things. So you know what? The city of Houston probably appreciates Andrew Berry more than the city of Cleveland does right now for the work that he's done.
Like, does he have homes down in Houston? I'm just curious because there's been a lot of moves going to and from Houston and Cleveland that just don't make a lot of sense. And while Nick Chubb, I understand, I don't understand at the same time. Everybody on the team wanted him still. He wanted to still be in Cleveland. The only person that didn't want him there was Andrew Berry. And that's the shocking part about it, where you need a running back. Your team without a running back, we've seen what happens. Yes, you have young players, but I don't know if this is the right move, if you will. So this is, it's definitely an intriguing, like, I don't know what to think with this one. But I think for Nick Chubb, this is a great situation for him where he gets to go run in a dome now and not have to worry about the Cleveland weather for half of a season, if not longer. But by the way, I need somebody to give me that update on how many Cleveland Browns were drafted or were going to be drafted or ended up in Houston because of a draft pick between the Deshaun and the now Nick Chubb and the other signings in the offseason.
A lot. We'll start
too
there.
Many. Too many for Andrew Berry not to be under investigation.
And to answer our good friend Hector, Texans now AFC South favorites, and I would say hands down comfortably the favorites, which I'm concerned about CJ Stroud's potential shoulder just uncomfortableness. If that's a lingering issue, which we'll talk shoulders here in just a moment, then that's to be worried about. If he's fine, good for training camp, then easily the favorites. There's nobody else in that division that should relatively come close on paper. We still have to wait till they start playing, but I would say they're definitely the favorites as of right now, and this just adds to it.
Yeah, I think it's all barring on what we see out of Cam Ward and what we see out of Trevor Lawrence outside of Houston's what they can do, right? Outside of Houston doing what they can do best, if there's any competition, it's going to come from either Cam Ward or Trevor Lawrence having a great year. I don't know if we'll see that level of Trevor Lawrence again. I don't know if we ever have seen that level of Trevor Lawrence in the NFL. So I don't know if he's good enough right now, especially considering the head injuries now. Cam Ward, though, obviously rookie. You don't know what they're going to do, but the Titans might be that team that what they've done in the offseason could be the one that usurps everything else they've done. The AFC South right now looks a lot like what the NFC East was looking like for a few years there, where somebody's going to surprise you and win the division, or at least challenge for the division. And that's, you just never know. But yeah, they should be the favorites. Like Houston should be the favorites.
Absolutely. I mean, there's, like you mentioned, Cam Ward, young rookie dynamic. We'll see how that translates to the NFL. Can we get Trevor Lawrence from the back half of 2022? Can we get him healthy with Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter out wide? Does he even have to really be good, or can he just kind of be decent and it still work out? New coach, etc. Houston, we already just talked about them. Then there's that other team that we'll talk about too really quickly. We got the Indianapolis Colts too. They have quarterback concerns of their own with Anthony Richardson basically out for the rest of minicamp with shoulder concerns on that shoulder that was previously injured as well. There's been talks of he should be ready for training camp, getting a second opinion. It's a little bit murky. You kind of heard a little bit both ways. Point is, the shoulder's banged up right now, and we haven't even got through mini camps. The reason we're kind of focusing on this, normally the injuries right now, you kind of take with a pound of salt like we just talked about with CJ. But when it comes to that surgically repaired shoulder, our good friend Brian from the Injured Sports podcast, he kind of told us a little bit about this at the Fantasy Football Expo, where that's a very concerning injury, and this was a blog post that he posted I want to bring to everyone's attention to. Grade 3 AC joint separation. It sidelined again, aggravating that same shoulder. Doesn't look like it'll be surgery this time. Taking a cautious approach, easing him back into it, especially a very complex injury like you mentioned. He told us, I believe it was on the recorded show he had too, that a high chance of re-injury with that type of thing. It's not like Keenan Allen's AC shoulder joint was not nearly as severe. And on top of that, he's playing receiver where Anthony Richardson's playing quarter/fullback at the same time on any given play. And I'm going to add on to this before I let you go too. I'm really worried about it in the standpoint of he's hurt a lot. He's missed 50% of the eligible games, so it's not just this one thing. 2, the way he throws the ball is not very mechanically sound at this point. So a lot of his, like the throws he has, he's not using his whole body. He's not using the hip. He's not rotating. There's a lot of stress on that elbow and shoulder as it is. In addition to, if he would have been more fundamentally sound, it would already be there too. So I am concerned about that as well. Not to mention, he is a running quarterback. That is what makes him even remotely a threat at times, is the fact that he can move. This is not going to help. So if I'm the Colts, I'm definitely worried. And we kind of got that sentiment when the new owners talked about it too, of like he's a young kid, but at some point, like these injuries are getting to a concern. And an injury to the throwing shoulder, very rarely is it just kind of something you wash away, especially one, as our good friend Brian here explains. It's not just a casual injury. It's not just, ow, that hurts a little bit. Like this is, I'm not going to say Tommy John for pitchers because that's extreme, but it's something to be definitely concerned about.
Yeah, it's more terrifying. It's honestly, it's the equivalent to Tommy John's for an NFL quarterback. And what what I mean by that is it is as close as you can get because there is no surgery outside of clipping and cleaning that you can do. You can't have like the high wire like they do for the ankles that keep it from reseparating. You can't have those type of surgeries on it. These surgeries, we talked to Brian about this in depth before when we were at the expo last year. And, I really wish we had just gotten on camera at that point in time. But it was really interesting because there's nothing that the doctors can really do to help prevent, whereas there's a lot of new surgeries for other injuries that you can actually prevent, that you can have preventative surgeries in there. This is one that you're a little terrified that it's going to be a long-term thing. And AC joints have never been a good thing, whether it be an offensive lineman, whether it be a quarterback, whether it be a linebacker. I mean, you see Terrell Suggs used to wear that giant shoulder piece, that shoulder harness, after he separated his AC joint for the first time. And he said it would just keep happening. And then it's just a matter of playing through pain, getting Toradol shots and everything else in between. And especially for AR, it's like even more terrifying because he's a guy that his body doesn't work with his arms when he throws the ball. He's very much we talk about it in baseball all the time, a guy who throws with his arms, maybe gets a lot of velocity, but doesn't get everything on it. And but can't get as much as what he does with his body. Think about how far he throws right now. He doesn't use a complete throwing motion to do that. He uses a 85% upper body, 15% lower body. If he had an understanding of that bio rhythm, that motion, these shoulder injuries become less concerning. If he threw like Phillip Rivers, as ugly as that was, if he threw like Phillip Rivers, I'm not concerned about this at all, period. Because that guy doesn't throw with anything more than his body. And that's, at the end of the day, Anthony Richardson's going to have to go through his own growth period here and come back a revamped style of player if this is not going to become a long-term injury. And that is already terrifying considering he was already a project.
And if you throw on top of it, let's say he does all of that stuff mechanically well, that becomes not an issue. That shoulder's still a concern if you had just tackled wrong or if you just fall on it wrong too. Like there's that on top of it, especially with, as Brian mentioned, something that could be a very concerning for injury. The good news is he didn't re-injure it last season. Like the earlier was the bigger concern of it happening again. So hopefully in theory, this means that it could start to build that way. You got to definitely be concerned, especially because right now you're not even into training camp. You're in the mini camps of June. But that was, once again, we wanted to give a shout out to our good friend Brian as well, orthopedic surgeon. Definitely go check out his blog. Right there, you can see the link on the screen. You can reach out there as well. So definitely go check him out and his podcast, the Injury Report podcast as well. Always a pleasure to understand from him, a guy who knows his stuff inside and out. And if you want to, win your fantasy league, true industry professional. You want to win your fantasy league, the best thing you can do is have your guys play and that's the biggest thing is having them healthy. So definitely go check out Brian, his podcast, his blog, everything in between. You definitely won't regret it. It's absolutely awesome. But we've talked a little bit about quarterbacks that can get injured. Well, we're going to stay on that same vein and head to South Beach, a team that might be potentially adding another left-handed quarterback from Hawaii to their room is one of Kelcey's 500, maybe 400 favorite sports creators online, Kurt Benkert, kind of making an alluding to the fact that Dylan Gabriel might be heading to Miami, depending on how that Cleveland quarterback competition comes out. So what do we think about that one, having Dylan Gabriel head to South Beach?
I found this very interesting. So Kurt Benkert, if nobody's ever followed him, he's a former Packers backup, really good quarterback in the USFL, I should say. Just couldn't make a name for himself, couldn't stick around is kind of where he was, but he's really great arm talent. So he tweeted out the other day, he said, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Dolphins trade for Browns quarterback Dylan Gabriel at the end of preseason. They liked him a ton, as in the Dolphins liked Gabriel a ton, saw him as an incredible scheme fit with athletic upside, and were going to take him a few picks later. But then the Browns drafted him, per source. The Dolphins then traded away their pick after Gabriel was no longer available. So, intriguing if true, first of all, because you see the inner workings of the draft and how non-communication can impact somebody. But you also see the Dolphins already looking at a potential replacement for Tua in the draft, if true. Meaning, you look at the Browns and you're like, you guys got 5 quarterbacks in this draft, in this room. One of them you don't know about. You have 2 rookies. Both of those rookies aren't going to stick with the team. That's just the nature of the business. So you have to figure out who's gone, who's going to stay. If Dylan Gabriel goes to the Dolphins, it's the best of both worlds, best for both teams. You have the Browns getting some capital But then you also have, in reverse, the Dolphins getting another left-hander who has a better arm and who is more athletic and less injury prone than Tua. All positives at the end of the day. Tua is a quality quarterback when healthy, but he can't stay healthy. He gets 3 to 5 games now before there's something else. And given the nature of his injuries, you worry about there being something more. So this is one I'm looking to is like, if this happens, I wouldn't be shocked. As shocking as rookie trades ever can be, because they are shocking when they happen. This is one that if it happened, I would feel less surprised about this than a lot of the other trades I've ever seen in any sport. Just because this one kind of makes sense, and especially from the draft process, if they like Dillon Gabriel and he just gets better in the preseason, but it's not a scheme fit in Cleveland, which I'm 50-50 on if it's a scheme fit right now. Kevin Stefanski's offense works for some quarterbacks, doesn't work for others. It seems to be a potential fit for Gabriel, but I don't know if it's a solid fit. So yeah, I think this is one we know it would be a fit in Miami because Miami tailors their offense to exactly what Dillon Gabriel's skill sets are. So I think it'd be a very interesting and very impactful trade for both teams in 2 different ways. I think it'd be really fun to watch.
I don't hate the idea, especially let's say Shedeur kind of takes that QB2 spot behind Flacco or however it may be, or QB3 behind Kenny Pickett. However it shakes out, where basically Gabriel is the odd man out. It does make sense since they still do have that $90+ million burden at quarterback in Cleveland too on the side. So you can't have 5 quarterbacks at that point. Miami, you saw what happened with Tua. Is out, it never flows, it never functions. The offense kind of dies because their backup quarterback position's been pooped the last few years for the most part. So getting someone in there who maybe Dillon Gabriel doesn't work out, but we can find out. It's better than what you've been trotting out there before. And nothing else, the ball is going to spin the same way with Tua and Dillon Gabriel with the left-handedness. So at least Tyreek, Jalen, and the squad will get used to that part. So that'll be something to keep an eye out on for sure. Before we switch into our next topic, I just want to mention is the Injured List podcast. I misspoke. His Injury List podcast. So that's where to go check out Brian and his blog for everything as well. But we're going to pivot from injuries to tomfoolery, to say the least, as we're going to head back to the north, and we're going to go to the Cincinnati Bengals. Not only are they have issues with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, they finally get those figured out. We're finally cooking with fire. Well, now we got other issues. Now they're having issues with their rookie signing, not only Trey Hendrickson, their superstar defensive end pass rusher. Now they can't even get their rookie edge Shamar Stewart signed, in part because of the language of the rookie year contract. The salaries are pretty much set in stone. It's a few different things regarding the language, but more or less the voiding of guarantees. We're going to go ahead and take just a quick little gander here to get a bit of an idea of some of what the issue is. So you can see the Bengals have decided to wedge a new clause into the deal. It would turn any default in any given year into a void of all remaining guarantees. Previous ones like Mims last year just kind of voided out the guarantees for that 1 year. Same with their previous handful of first round picks. And Shamar's basically saying, no, you will not do that. As basically, you're not going to try this out on me. For the record, this clause has been used by other teams and other rookies. This is a new one for the Bengals that are throwing it out there too. So Bengals bungling the bad. You got Joe Burrow and his boys, but now you got to score 50 because you have absolutely nobody to get after the passer. And the guy you drafted in the first round, you tried to pull a fast one on. Now he's not even going to get in there to potentially develop into a guy that can get after the passer. So I don't know why they're trying to do this, considering financially it doesn't change a whole lot. Your salary is still the same. They're basically just trying to pull a fast one. But I don't get this move. I know the Bengals have the history of being quote unquote notoriously cheap, but this just seems like a silly hill to die on. I don't really get it.
Yeah, I don't like this look at all. This is not the first time the Bengals have had issues to this level publicly with signing a rookie. Now, we all know the famous, Andre Smith, lineman out of Alabama that they drafted, or at LSU, one of the two. He was massive, big dude, and just never panned out in the NFL because he held out for his entire first year, and then, never worked out for him. Look, I don't think Shamar Stewart's going to go that far, but I do think this is a pretty Bush League move by the Bengals to use this. Like, don't do it on your rookie, your first round rookie the first time. Like, do it for a second, third, fourth rounder, fine. But you're already struggling to sign a defensive lineman and an edge rusher in Trey Hendrickson. Why are you going to make yourself any worse off by not letting your rookie get into camp ASAP. Now, he's not the only rookie that is unsigned. Travis Hunter is also still unsigned. However, Travis Hunter is practicing because he didn't get bush leagued by his contract. The Bengals, on the other hand, are trying to throw this in there and throw a wrench in the system, and there's no sense to it. I actually very rarely agree with a rookie holding out, but this is one where I'm like, yeah, I don't blame him. Because if they're going to treat you like this as a rookie, what are they going to treat you like this, like as a fourth-year player going for another contract? What are they going to treat you like on a franchise tag? What are they going to treat you like 10 years down the road or 8 years down the road as a quote-unquote franchise player, like maybe a la Trey Hendrickson, for example?
So you just have to look down the locker room a couple steps to see exactly what it's going to look like.
You're already being ranked 31st to 30th of every NFL team when it comes to front office management. Don't make it any worse for yourself, Bengals. Like, this is ugly on so many levels for the Bengals. It's not even a bad look for Shemar Stewart, who has had, to be fair, if we're being fair to both sides, Shemar Stewart has had a lot of reason for people to not like him. Just nature of the work, nature of what happened in college to him. He is an outspoken individual. There's nothing wrong with being outspoken, though, as well. Like, the other things, we'll leave those alone. But by nature, Shemar Stewart has every right to hold out in my eyes. I don't mind this at all because he's not asking for more money. He's not asking for more guarantees. He's just asking to be given his money year by year if there's no void.
Basically saying you void the rest of that year as opposed to all of the guarantees. As the Bengals history has shown that they do. And I will say, like, other teams have done this, but you're not gonna try this on me now. This is not your precedent.
Rookie contracts are guaranteed money. That's the problem, especially in the 18th round. They are 80% or higher guaranteed money year after year. It's not a lot of money, but it is guaranteed money. And you're basically eliminating potentially eliminating 85% of his future contract earnings if you eliminate the guarantees, leaving only performance-based, which would be for a rookie, $100,000, $200,000. It would be below league minimum, which is wild to think about.
Crazy to think about, especially when you already are having issues with the Trey Hendrickson signing because he's an outstanding edge rusher, wants to be paid like an outstanding edge rusher. He's 31, so this is his last time to really get a bag necessarily like that. That kind of makes sense because we see that happen. They still should find a way to get it done. Because your defense was like 29th, even with him. So, or you should have traded him at draft time. I digress. That one makes sense. I still think they're not doing good business there either. But this one's just egregious, especially when this is supposed to be your guy to replace Trey Hendrickson, quote unquote. Now you're fumbling it both sideways. It's just very, very, and it's a bad precedence for other guys who have their contracts coming up too. Not just Shemar, who even kind of said it at his locker. Like, the Bengals are more concerned with winning arguments and getting things done. So eventually it's going to get figured out. Shemar is going to suit up for the Bengals. He's going to play, but he's not getting a second contract there. They are not bringing him back, even if he is Trey Hendrickson, as we can see right now. They will not be bringing him back. But everyone be sure to let us know down in the comment section below what you think of the situation. Are the Bengals wrong? Is Shemar wrong? Are they both wrong? Is it just dumb that we're having this conversation in general because this should have been taken care of already, which I digress on that one. But that is going to do it for the tip-off, which is now going to transition us into the main event. And for the main event, don't check your calendars. It is still June. We are sticking with the football field, but that's because we have, do we want to call it controversy? Do we want to call it tomfoolery? Do you just want to call it Chris Sims being Chris Sims as he shared his top 5 quarterback rankings? And, let's just kind of see it for yourself. We're going to start with the top 4 because a lot of those are relatively unanimous. I think it's the order that has people in a bit of an uprise, as we got Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes pulling up the rear of the at number 4. And then at 5, he has Jaden Daniels. And you can see after that, there's Stafford, Stroud, Herbert, Mayfield, Hurts. But Kelcey, we're focusing on that top 5 for now, especially with Patrick Mahomes at 4. We're gonna actually just skip that part. We're gonna go right into it. We're gonna rank our top 5 and in comparison to what he has ranked. So Kelcey, I'm gonna let you go first. You can go from 5 to 1 and let us know, and we'll see how it compares to what Chris Sims has.
Yeah. So my number 5 is Jared Goff. As much as I like Jaden Daniels, I have a hard time taking a guy who was destroying teams, like embarrassingly destroying teams, even while throwing 4 and 5 interceptions in a week and still dominating from a passing standpoint 4,600 yards last year, 37 touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns. Dude doesn't run, so the fact he has 4 rushing touchdowns is kind of surprising. He would have more passing touchdowns, but Amon-Ra had a few, and I believe also David Montgomery had one as well. So
Not to
there's
mention Jahmyr
3.
Gibbs led the NFL in rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, those will hurt. But dude had 73% passer or completion percentage. That's not easy in the NFL. Not the highest percentage last year, but it's still not easy to have that high of a percentage. So I have Goff at number 5 for me. And yeah, so I just feel like that's my preference there, 5. Number 4, I do not have Patty at number 4. I was at least nice to Patty. Nicer, I guess I should say. I have Joe Burrow. I flipped Joe. I do have Patty at 3. So I'll get that out of the way as well. I just think Patty has that intangible factor that he's proven that he's one of the best quarterbacks. He did not have a great year last year. He didn't look healthy. I do have questions with his weapons, so I don't think he will be as effective this year. If he's there sitting there for a draft pick, I would take him at 3. I would also take Joe Burrow as the third quarterback off the board in a fantasy draft. So those are both options. If I'm building long term, I take Burrow. If I'm building short term, I take Patty. That's kind of the breakdown between 3 and 4 there. So Patty at 3, Burrow 4, Goff 5. My top 2, I have the same order. I have Josh Allen at 2, Lamar at 1. I have a hard time hating on Lamar. I think we've talked about these Josh Allen, Lamar conversations too many times to hear my love of Lamar Jackson. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. Everybody overrates him or underrates his passing ability. By the way, he had more passing yards than Josh Allen last year. He also had more passing touchdowns than Josh Allen last year. Accounted for 41 passing touchdowns last year. Josh Allen, 28 passing touchdowns, 12 rushing. So still combined, didn't even have as many touchdowns as Lamar. Lamar, 4,100 yards. Josh Allen, 3,700 yards. Completion rate, 64% between Lamar and Josh. Whatever. I love the intangible factor of both of these guys. Josh Allen has the most rushing touchdowns for a quarterback since he's entered the league. Lamar Jackson has that factor that you just don't know when he can break off a 60-yard touchdown with his feet. But at the same time, he is more than happy to sit back. And I've said this since he got drafted. He is more than happy to sit back and just lob it over you like it's the laziest, most aggravating thing he's ever had to do in his life. But he does it, and it looks fantastic every time. And now he has actual weapons out wide to do it. So for that, I have Lamar at number 1, Josh Allen number 2, Patty at number 3, Burrow at number 4, and Jared Goff at number 5. My top 5 rankings going into this year.
So we got the 4 quote unquote core 4s. He calls them intact, a different or a little shakeup, but intact. And then Jared Goff getting a side, which we do love ourselves from Jared Goff, Ryan. We have for a long time. So I
have his number 1 receiver on this shoulder, and by the way, I have Burrow on that shoulder. So
I don't have their jerseys behind me right now, so I got no stake in this race whatsoever. But I'm gonna go and give mine, and I'm gonna start at number 5 because one thing that I'm taking into account to this is we're going into next year, which factors in what you've done recently in the past, and for me, it also. Another part of it is going to be what is in your trophy case. So what you have accomplished so far. That's not the end all be all. This is not ring chasing culture here, but when it's close, that could make a difference.
What is in your your hardware case? But we're not ring chasing, guys.
We're not. I'm saying when it's close, there's gonna be something that changes the difference, which is why at number 5 I have Joe Burrow. He's awesome. Last year he's been in the NFL 5 years, made the playoffs twice. Has had 2 seasons where he's absolutely lit it up, including last year where he led the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Defense kind of let him down last year a little bit for obvious reasons, as we saw the amount of shootout games they had. There's also the issue of he has not won a week 1 game since 2021. He's always ends up getting injured going into the season. So they always start out like 0-2, 1-3, something asinine like that. They just, for some reason, the month of September going to October is just miserable for him. That is in part because he ends up not coming in 100%, not coming in healthy, slow starts. At the same time, while he has been awesome, his best, what kind of has him stand out and has him in this area is what he's done in the playoffs, where he has 9 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, fine playoff numbers. Problem is we haven't seen that since the Burrow head comment 3 years ago. That's the last time we saw him. So we need to get him in the playoffs. We need to keep him going. All that being said, he's still legit. He's still top 5. You take him top 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's in this conversation. He's still right there along with it. Like you said, you have him at 3. No, you have him at 4, excuse me. Or if you have him at 3, not a huge debate here. All the intangibles, the way he plays quarterback is absolutely awesome.
Maybe number 4 with defense, he'd be fine.
Hey, they had a defense in week 1, and he still let the Patriots beat them, which ended up costing you a playoff spot because you didn't come in prepared for week 1 against a mediocre team. Be prepared to win week 1, Cincinnati. It's been half a decade. Get it together. All right, we're done with this now. You're starting to look like the Colts who haven't won a week 1 game in literally a decade. Getting tired of it. Winning week 1. Number 4, Jalen Hurts. The way he plays quarterback is sometimes painful to watch because he holds the ball forever and then throws it out of bounds. He's still, we talk about playoff success. He has 10 passing touchdowns to 3 interceptions. And rushing touchdowns, I believe he's close to 10 as well. I don't have the stats pulled up right now, but
yeah.
One is
he was double digits for sure last year.
He is a scoring threat. He has been to 2 Super Bowls. He now has a Super Bowl win and a Super Bowl MVP. So that's where the hard work gives him a slight edge over Joe Burrow, considering a lot of things they've done similarly because they play quarterbacks very differently. Joe Burrow's passing stats are obviously going to be gaudy. He's basically, the offense is built for him to do that, where the Eagles' offense has been built for throw bombs to AJ, Saquon Barkley run for 2,000 yards, and everyone grab Jalen Hurts' ass and push him. The way the offenses are built, it's a different skill set. We're giving Jalen Hurts a very, very slight edge, and 14 rushing touchdowns in the playoffs for Jalen Hurts in his playoff career. And since he became a starter in 2021, the same year that Joe Burrow, we're not including Joe Burrow's rookie year, so we're going 2021 now, he's made the playoffs every single year. And that included a year where they had the
14 for his regular season last year.
Regular season, okay. So either way, you throw that on top of his 18 passing touchdowns. He's accumulating for 32 touchdowns with a top 7 running back season of all time back there. So we're giving Jalen Hurts some love. We're putting him at number 4. At the end of the day, results do kind of matter on top of it, even if the stats aren't gaudy. Number 3, we're going to go with Lamar Jackson. Everything you said, everything about these guys, he's absolutely awesome. Last year, he should have won MVP, but the year before should have went to Josh Allen. So I guess in a way, it weirdly balances out because the year before, Josh Allen had all the touchdowns. But I think he accounted for 42 that previous year. And Lamar had 28. So they got at the end of the day, they have the right amount of trophies. They just got it backwards. But I digress. So in this final 3, they're all so good. We're splitting hairs here. The reason I'm putting 3 and Josh Allen at 2 is simply because playoff success has veered in Josh Allen's favor over Lamar's. And that's we're so slim pickings right here because they're all so damn good. These are the guys that I think you could plug in any era and they will be good. Where some of these guys I don't think could play in the 2000s because I don't know if they could do a 7-step drop because everything's in the shotgun. And being traumatic, of course. But I think these guys, I'm giving Josh Allen the slight edge at number 2 because of the playoff success. And in that same vein, Patrick Mahomes' trophy case is absolutely loaded. The last 2 years have been quote unquote bad, and he has still completed 67% of his passes, 4,100 yards 2 years ago, 39.28 last year. And by the way, both those seasons, he only played 16 games. He sat out week 17, 27 touchdowns and 26 touchdowns. His bad seasons are, pretty damn good for just about everybody else. So, those are his bad seasons. Multiple MVPs, Super Bowls, we know all that jazz. Going into this year, I will say, is the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era that mantle, I think, is truly, quote unquote, in doubt. Let's say Lamar goes on an epic run, wins a Super Bowl, beats Patrick Mahomes and in the playoffs, something like that. Then I think there's a really strong case, even to those who overvalue the past, if that makes sense. Or if Josh Allen does something along those lines. So I think it's really, really close. I'm still going to give Patrick Mahomes the number 1 edge because I think the 3 of them are so close in current play. So that I'm going to let that the hardware gives him a slight edge over the top. So my top 5 is going to go Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, then Joe Burrow. But I do want to say I do love the Jared Goff. He's definitely in that honorable mention category where there's 4 guys I could really plug into that top 5 spot to go along with those guys. It's right there.
Yeah, I need to be okay. So I did look it up, by the way. It's 10 rushing touchdowns in the playoffs for Jalen Hurts so far in his career. 14 rushing touchdowns in his regular season last year. With that said, everything about Jalen Hurts, he's the only Alabama guy I will ever say I root for outside of Derrick Henry. Period.
Well, Devontae Smith is still around.
Okay.
All right, I know that we've kind of reached your quote on Crimson Tide now. That's
that's pushing it. Devontae, I have a love-hate relationship with Devontae because he's still an Eagle.
Okay, that's fair.
But whereas Hurts, I don't care what team he plays for. I'm going to root for the guy first because he's a good dude, really good dude. And despite that, I didn't put him in my top 5 because when I look at quarterback play, I don't rank him as the best quarterback or one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. I rank him as one of the top winners in the league, which everybody's gonna be like, what are you talking about? It's the same difference I make between Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was a better quarterback than Tom Brady, who was a better winner. Those are just by the nature of the beast what they are. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Jalen sometimes is too happy to just let the game plan be the game plan. Difference is between him and a lot of other teams, he has Saquon Barkley to let the game plan be the game plan. He has a defense that is insane to go watch. That team is outstanding top to bottom. And is he reaping the benefits of that? Sure. Is he a talented individual by himself? Absolutely. To me, he's a number 6 on my list, but he's just not cracking that top 5 because of just pure quarterback play. I still think he misses too many open throws that he could hit. And that's the difference for me for Jalen, why he didn't crack the top 5 is I think he just misses those open throws. Whereas like Jared Goff, he's going to hit the easy ones 9 times out of 10. The 1 out of the 10 times is when he has 5 interceptions in a game. That's going to be the bad. And yes, he does average a pick a game pretty much, but it's still, that's negligible when he gives up so much offensive yardage and firepower to the rest of the Lions, where the Lions need that offense, especially last year and going into this year. That's what ranks the two between the two for me. If this was purely picking playoff quarterbacks, though, I'm going Patty and Jalen 1 and 2. Because that's how I feel about it. And I'm not saying they're going to be 1 and 2 in that order. I'm saying they're my top 2, and you can pick which order. I don't care. They're good there. Because I do think when it comes to winning, Jalen and Patty are the top 2 winners in the league. And I think that's also why I didn't rank Patty as highly as everything else, where it's like Patty, to me, his last 2 seasons, especially when you consider 17 of those games, were kind of just meh. Last year, regular season, meh. Year before that's regular season, I mean, it could have been better. He wasn't in the MVP top 3, number 4, but still wasn't in the top 3 either year. And, you know, that's for me where I like Patty in the last 2 years hasn't looked as good as he did his first 5, whatever it was. You know, his career has spoken enough. But yeah, for me, Patty and I love Patty. I love Hurts, but they're just winners to me more so than quarterbacks right now. And now that's nothing wrong when I'm winning a title. It's wrong when I'm picking top quarterbacks at a position. Now, if I'm just talking MVP of a league, they have a conversation. Just quarterback only, though, to me, they're just not a top 5 top 3 quarterback in most of their cases. Patty obviously being number 3. So yeah, that's to explain my situation a little bit more, why I picked what I did. There you go.
I do want to add to with Jalen Hurts, and I think that stands out. Obviously, he plays quarterback differently than all of these guys. He is a very, and he's also had 3 different offensive coordinators in 3 consecutive years, and he's gone to 2 Super Bowls during that time. Every single year he has had that he's been a full-time starter, so the 4 years, he's had more rushing touchdowns than interceptions, except for that 2023 year where he tied. It was 15 and 15. And that was the year when everything kind of went to poop after their 10-1 start that we all kind of remember. So he's consistently taking care of the ball, finding his way into the end zone. And that year they did have the 28th ranked defense or whatever it was too. So it's not like last year where the defense was incredible. Cooper, the exciting Whites, Quinyon Mitchell, the Georgia car crashes on the line, Zach Bond, etc., where it's just so dynamic. So I don't think he's had that to ride the entire time, but I get it. There's some really talented quarterbacks, and Matthew Stafford has a very strong case to be in this as well. Jaden Daniels, I didn't put him up here because it's the same thing with CJ Stroud. You can't get in there off of 1 year. I'm sorry, I won't allow it. I don't care how good of a year it was. You need at least 2 of them before we can throw you up there. The rules are the rules that I make them for this particular situation, and that's just the rule we're going by. And look at some of the other guys. CJ Stroud, rough year last year. You got to see more. Justin Herbert, you got to win a playoff game at some point. You've been here forever. And then not only that, you can't throw 4 picks in the game too. Baker, kind of the perfect spot, honestly. Like number 9 is kind of a perfect spot for Baker, in my opinion. Like honestly, 8, 9, 11, somewhere in there.
Yeah, for Baker and Herbert, I would flip them personally. But Baker could also be a guy that climbs up to 7 for my list, where I have Hurts at 6. Stafford could be a 7, but it could be Baker. And then 8, 9, I'm okay with Stafford, Herbert. I don't care. But I think Baker has an argument to be paired up with those 3 guys, Stafford, Herbert, and Baker together. That doesn't bother me at all. I also don't believe Stroud or Jaden should be in that high just because 1 year. But I also have this claim that I don't like rookies early on in any sort of total ranking systems. unless they're just absolutely insane, like Ashton Genty, in which case, okay, I can agree to that.
It's definitely a very interesting conversation that everyone can have. So everyone be sure to let us know down in the comments below what your quarterback rankings are, what ones we got right, what ones we got wrong. And frankly, if I'm starting a franchise, I'll take any of the 5, considering the current situation for both of our team's quarterbacks. Yours is fine while healthy, mine's a catastrophe. So you know what? We'll take any of those guys.
I
If we
mean,
want. Like,
I'm
let's
doing
raise hell.
great no matter healthy or injured right now because I don't have a team, so I'm still doing just fine.
As of right now, there is no team, but be sure to send us a message too with your best courting Kelcey pitch, 60 to 90 seconds of why Kelcey should be a fan of your team starting next season. But that's going to do it here for the main event, which is now take us to Kelcey's favorite part of every show, and that is, of course, crunch time. And for crunch time, we're going to step away from the gridiron, at least for a moment here. I'm going to talk a little bit of fisticuffs for a little bit. Because we finally got a little bit of clarity about the UFC heavyweight championship and the Jon Jones fiasco last year. And by clarity, I mean we know absolutely nothing at this point. We're going to start here. Good old Ariel Helwani. Anyone who's been in the know knows that since 2016, Ariel Helwani and the UFC have been the exact opposite of bros. In fact, they've been mortal enemies, for lack of a better terms, in the same space. What Ariel reported a few weeks ago, Jon Jones was offered all the money he wanted. He asked for FU money to fight Tom Aspinall, literally FU money. They said, and then at that point, they said, yeah, sure. They offered it to him. He said yes. And then he backed out of it. Then he said, no, I don't want to. I changed my mind. And that was kind of more or less Dana White unintentionally hinted at that during the press conference where he said, like, oh, yeah, Jon agreed to the fight. But they didn't report the part where he backed out. They just said, oh, he agreed to it. And he claimed, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what Johnny's talking about on X because he's saying all sorts of tomfoolery on Twitter, basically alluding to he will never fight Tom, saying he's not going to, which you are perfectly within your rights. You don't have to fight Tom. You are a grown man. You don't have to fight Tom. However, your legacy is still mostly intact. But we're gonna ignore the steroids at those 17,000 bucks. We'll ignore everything off there. We're not gonna get into that at this point. The problem where it gets a little bit uncomfortable is then you tweet something like this when Francis Ngannou says he wants to come back. Now you're interested in fighting. You just said that you didn't want to, that hadn't been training. You were in Thailand living your best life. Now you're talking about a clash of champions with Francis Ngannou, the fight we wanted for 3 years. This is the perfect comment. I don't even have to say anything. The 3 years they wanted it, you were nowhere to be seen. You had to quote unquote bulk up, and you came in with a really, really uncomfortable pot belly for an athlete of your caliber. You disappeared for 3 years for this fight, and now suddenly you want it. Nothing has really changed during this time. There is a contender in Tom Aspinall right there. If you don't want to fight him, vacate the belt, retire, whatever. You said before Stipe's fight that you weren't interested in, you wanted super fights only. Everyone kind of gets that. Okay, you have like maybe a handful of fights left. Okay. Then you say things like you want to fight Derek Lewis, and then you want to fight Jamal Hill. Those are not super fights. The only thing super is how hot will Derek Balls get before he throws off his shorts in the middle of that fight. That is an absolutely asinine claim. Go ahead and drop the belt. That is fine. But you can't say things like this and then just be like, no, it clearly shows ducking at this point. You're avoiding Tom Aspinall at all costs. Here today, gone tomorrow, whatever you want to say it is. Get rid of the belt then and go fight on your own time. You say the UFC knows your plans, that they just haven't said anything like that, which is the other part of this problem. Don't get me wrong, John, the issue is here with all this, but my other problem is with the UFC. Dana, what happened to you, my friend? What is going on? Are you even the UFC president anymore by more than title? Are you too busy with power slap and gambling with social media, guys? What are we doing here? You're used to never let something like this fly. Your patience with fighters used to be thinner than my hair. I can't believe we're at this point now. When Tyron Woodley even alluded to try and ask him to fight GSP, even the thought of it, because Stephen Thompson said he wanted to fight Robbie Lawler with the belt before Tyron beat him, you unleashed scorched earth on him and were basically threatening to steal the title, take the title off of him. You put an interim belt when he asked to delay to fight a month later than what they had scheduled. Then you threw an interim belt on there, and it sat around. There have been a bunch of interim titles over the UFC's history. 2 people have ever defended them. And then Burrow from the early 2010s when Dominic Cruz was going through his litany of injuries. And now Tom Aspinall, who has a interim title defense with a healthy champion. This is absolutely asinine. And the fact that this is going on, it's basically like if in 2017, Tom Brady and the Patriots, like, I don't really want to play the Eagles. Nick Foles is here today, gone tomorrow. We're living our best life. This won't add to my GOAT legacy. What if I lose? Or even when the Chiefs played the Eagles 2 years ago, this doesn't add to our legacy. They beat Daniel Jones, who's mediocre. They shouldn't have been there. And then they beat the 49ers after Brock Purdy got hurt in the first quarter and Christian McCaffrey was playing quarterback. What are we doing here? How did we get to this point? Dana White, you need to quit trying to be a boxing promoter and a power slap promoter, everything else. Get back in there. Either Jon Jones is fighting or he's not. Whatever. Get this division moving. Like, what are we doing? If Tom Aspinall is as good as most people think he is, to the point where he was a betting favorite over Jon Jones when it was initially potentially going to be booked back in November, we should see him out there then. Find a way to get him out there. Get him out there. Fight somebody else. Jon wants to come back. He can fight for the championship. There you go, Jon. That adds to your legacy because now you're a 2-time heavyweight champion. If you end up beating him to take the title back. If you don't want to, Alex Pereira is available. You mentioned that fight. You can go fight him. He is available. And just for the last record too, Jon Jones is 28-1 right now in his UFC career. Coming into the decade, coming into 2020, into the 2020s, he is 25-1. He has fought 3 times this decade. Since 2015, that was when he got stripped of the belt because of the hit and run issue. And that's when a lot of the outside the cage issues really started coming to fruition, where they had to cancel his fight with Anthony Johnson. Daniel Cormier ended up winning the title, et cetera, et cetera. Since that point, he has fought 8 times. That is literally less than a fight a year. That is 8 times in a decade. Like, we can't be seriously having this conversation. UFC, you can't let him dangle you. And no one in the NFL would let Tom Brady get away with this. No other sports organization, you have one player completely holding an organization hostage. So they got to figure this out. This is just embarrassing to watch. Get the heavyweight division moving. If they're holding this for a TV deal, like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, it's the weirdest thing. It's either the absolute worst promotion of all time, or it is by far the greatest way to hype up a fight I've ever seen, because it has me and all the MMA fans losing their damn mind over it, which means if this fight does get signed, everyone's tuning in. So either it's the best promotion I've ever seen, or it's the biggest embarrassment of all time. I don't know which yet, but I'm done ranting because I'm just annoyed at this point.
I do have to go back to the Francis Ngannou part of all of this. I do know, probably, if I'm guessing, why he wants to fight Ngannou. One, Ngannou coming off that knockout against Anthony Joshua in boxing, where he got knocked the F out. By the way, also fighting at 272, would have to lose weight to be able to fight in the UFC, because, stupid limits on the top of a heavyweight division. Still sounds silly to me. But yeah, that sounds, this is the dumbest thing. But he's like, oh, it's an easy win. I can get that. It's like, it doesn't feel like Jon's in this for the fight anymore. He's just in it to make money and walk away with easy wins. I don't want to say it's like Mayweather at the very end of his career prior to Pacquiao, but when he ducked Pacquiao for so many years, this is what it kind of feels like, is like Mayweather ducking Pacquiao, where that whole fight never really wanted to happen because both fighters wanted their own rules so that way they could have the benefits. This feels a lot like the same thing, where it's like Jon Jones is just like, no, I don't really want to do that. I'm afraid to lose if I actually fight Aspinall. Like, let me go fight some washed up previous UFC fighter who's now spending his time boxing and not losing weight to box. That's what this seems more like.
Don't get me wrong. If they could get Francis Ngannou back in the UFC, that'd be glorious. Like, it would be great to see him fight. Problem is, A, he has another fight in his PFL contract, so that's not even going to happen. Like that can't even happen right now. That's not a possibility. 2, you had the opportunity. There was like a 3-year span here where you were next. You vacated the light heavyweight belt. You said you had to quote unquote bulk up. And as soon as he's gone, you fight Cyril Gane for the vacant heavyweight championship on short notice. You had the opportunities there. So you're saying this because you know it's not going to happen. When the opportunity was there, it was there. You're still, if we ignore the other issues, if we don't have any parameters necessarily, you're considered the greatest fighter of all time. That's pretty locked in stone. If we're, not including parameters of don't get busted for drugs 1,000 times, but that's neither here nor there. If you don't have to take this fight, no one gets it. It's the fact that we're holding the title hostage. And you're saying you're not scared, but you're blatantly refusing to fight him. It's a very weird thing. I just want this figured out. I'm mostly also mad at the UFC for letting this happen. You used to crack down if anyone so much as thought of something like this. It's absolutely crazy to me right now. They never would have, when GSP retired after a win, they threw a temper tantrum about it after the Johnny Hendricks fight he vacated within a couple of weeks. This has been almost like 7 months. Like he fought in November. It's been a long time and we haven't had this figured out. Tom Aspinall hasn't fought in like 300 days. He has an interim champion with a title defense. That in itself is a problem. There's only been 2 of them, and there shouldn't have even been the first one, let alone the second one. So I digress. That's enough ranting. I hope they figure this out. I hope this fight gets signed, and all my bitching and whining is all comes to null and void. And in 2 weeks, I have to say, oh my God, what an amazing fight we have. I really hope I end up having to completely 180 degree this sooner than later, because this is just, watch them announce it at like UFC International Fight Week at the end of the month, too. They'll be like, by the way, guys, surprise, we finally got it signed November, New York, MSG. And then I'm like, well, damn. I threw a hissy fit for no reason.
I don't know if they ever fight in UFC, if any good fight's going to happen at MSG anymore after Connor.
I don't know. I mean, John's from there. That's a huge fight. You never know. You never
maybe
know.
Maybe they let him fight in Brooklyn.
Well, you know what? My point remains. My point is they make something happen. Maybe I'm wrong, but I digress. But that's where I'm at. I need the UFC to figure this out, because this is just absolutely insane what's going on right now.
Yeah. No. Like, I have to laugh about the Dana White thing because he is 100% not invested right now in the UFC. It doesn't feel like he's invested. Like you said, the dude was every penny that would go in and out of UFC before he was accounting. Now he's like, it's not $1 million. I don't care. It's like, well, hold on, Dana. That's not what you were doing just before this. You literally had fighters on super strict contracts, lower cards, not even getting $10,000, $15,000 bonuses. And now you have them like, oh yeah, if it's not $1 million type of deal, I don't want it. Like, oh, hold on. Maybe we pump the brakes there, Dana, and you actually focus on the UFC growing again.
Just need you to do what you're president of the UFC. I just need you to do that for now. You could do all the other stuff later, or plug somebody else in charge. We just got to get this figured out, because we're not getting super fights. We're not getting fun fights. We have too many cards. They're too scattered. This has gone on too long. I've ranted enough. Kelcey, is there anything with crunch time you'd like to wrap us up with?
No, but could you imagine interim president being added to a UFC and on top of
they'd end up with a title defense while we're still waiting for the president to get back on top of it. But that's going to do it here for the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all so much for joining us here. Let us know down in the comments below what your least favorite part of the show was and what your favorite part of the show was. We always appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll see you all again next time.